Comprehensive Board meeting of October the 6th. And can we have a roll call, Rachel?
Turn towards the microphone. Councilmember Kim Daughtry,
Present.
Mayor Christine Frizzell.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Joe Marine.
Present?
Thank you. Councilmember Mead. Councilmember Tom Merrill. Thank you. Mayor John Meering.
Here.
Thank you. Labor Representative Norton. Okay. Councilmember Strawn Peterson.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Sid Roberts.
Here.
Thank you. And Councilmember Jan Schweddy.
Present.
Thank you. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Thank you.
I'll quickly check to see which alternates we have present. So Councilmember Mike Gallagher.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Nate Meering. Councilmember Susan Payne. Mayor Mason Thompson. Mayor Kyoko Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome our new council member, Tom Peterson, to our board. Thank you very much. And you have small but big shoes to fill. Stephanie Wright, she did a great job on our board. We know that you will be a great addition as well, so we want to welcome you to the board. Thank you. All right, with that, this is a public comment period. We have got a couple signed up to speak online and a couple in the room. I'm going to start with the online. And let's start with Todd Welch.
All right, thank you. Can y'all hear me? Here, thank you. My comments real quick are going to be relating to the DART service. For the record, my name is Todd Welch. I'm a Lake Stevens resident, and also for just for public consumption, since I understand your all's job, I actually stood on the Lake Stevens City Council for 8 years, so I understand what it means to be an elected official. But my remarks around the DART service is its lack of service. I have a 23-year-old son who rides DART regularly. He lives in an apartment complex in Lake Stevens. Luckily for him, I have got him in a secure compartment complex where it is locked for him to get in or out of the foyer. The DART service is regularly late. His account now has actually been flagged. There's actually a supervisor riding on his route to make sure they're on time. His amount of times that he has been picked up late to go to work at the KFC in Marysville, which is literally a 10 to 15 minute ride, are so numerous I can't even
Labor
count
Rep
them.
Lance Norton is here.
Great.
Go ahead, Todd.
All right, thank you. Including one time being called a no-show, even though he was standing outside. I did request from Community Transit the location of the bus at that moment. I have still yet to get that information to this day.
Did someone acknowledge Lance Norton present?
Lance, we hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and just the other day he was picked up an hour late, and I was told on the phone he was going to be taken straight to his work. He arrived at work an hour later, so he was an hour late for work, which is a regular occurrence now for him, to the point where they're on the verge of firing him because of your all's lack of service. I'm also concerned, as I've only got a minute left to go, is I'm lucky, my son's lucky that I have him in a good building, in a good place like Lake Stevens. Some of these people who are they're the most vulnerable in our society. They have learning disabilities. They can't communicate well. And we're getting into a time where it's going to get darker faster. The weather's going to get bad, and they're going to be stuck outside in places that aren't the best to be in. And we're not providing the service that we're supposed to be. We are taxpayers. I know there's all this talk about COVID and services and lack of this, that, and the other. I should not expect less from government services as I do from the private sector. If your cable goes out for 5 seconds, I'm going to guarantee everybody's cussing Comcast out. And for just a couple of seconds of service the outage. And if they were to tell you it's going to take you a couple extra hours because of personnel, you'd probably try to find another service. But we can't find another service. I'm stuck with you guys. So something needs to be done about this. It needs to be done sooner rather than later before someone gets hurt, or hey, an ADA lawsuit gets leveled against you. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
All right, next online, we have Sabina Araya.
Good afternoon. I'm Sabina Araya, Lake Stevens resident and former long-range planning manager and manager of system planning for community transit. I'm here again to ask you to rescind the vaccine mandate and hire back the drivers and mechanics whose religious and medical exemptions you refuse to accommodate. You celebrate service awards, yet you don't value that some of those you fired have been at the agency for over 30 years. They built this agency. Some of them had to uproot their families, their kids from school and friends and move out of state. You forever damaged careers and financials for 10% of your employees, and for what? For safety? You saw the results of this policy, no safety improvements. It was clear in the data. You used 23 COVID cases in September to implement this policy. Infections tripled in January, and those 69 cases, all vaccinated employees, meant nothing. We don't use the data anymore. If these were accidents in the workplace, wouldn't you immediately try to find a different solution to the one that failed? If you cared about lowering cases, you would have implemented some safety measures that actually worked, like testing. Obviously, vaccination status is not equal to infections. At this point, everyone on the planet knows this. Even the CDC does not list vaccinations as prevention. OSHA even allowed accommodations. And your contractors, First Transit and TransDev, continue to operate without being under this mandate while your own employees were fired. The emperor had no clothes on this issue since the beginning. And even when that was obvious in January, you chose to do nothing about it. You let the public suffer through service cuts without a Title VI process in March, and hundreds of trips are dropped daily since January. And even when you have given now yourselves the authority to rescind the mandate, you haven't done it. And what are you waiting for? Even Canada dropped theirs, New Zealand, and doesn't that say a lot? You keep eating in this bubble of pretend science when you see that no other transit agency that didn't implement this mandate, didn't have this many cases, didn't drop service. I appreciate your leadership, but please don't just enjoy the trips to DC and the fight for those board seats. Please hold the agency accountable, as uncomfortable as it may be at times. I am not comfortable coming here month after month, but your employees that were fired are even less comfortable, and I hear from them. It's heartbreaking. You can't pretend that the mandate was a good strategy. It wasn't. If you want to rebuild a foundation of trust with your employees and the public, you can only do that if you rescind the mandate. It's long overdue. We all want cities to thrive. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Araya. All right, in the room, I have Lillian, is it Wen? Ween? Yeah, Lillian Ween.
You want me?
Oh, yeah, you come up to the podium here.
My name's Lillian Ween. Am I on?
Speakers no.
Yeah, you just have to kind of speak loud. The speakers are they're not working, but you're being picked up.
Okay. My name's Lillian Ween. I am retired from community transit 15 years ago. Worked there for 21 years. I live now in Marysville, Washington, having recently returned from Oregon. In July, I spoke via the Zoom meeting in regard to the vaccination mandate that was implemented by the then CTO, Engelfritz. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. As I have ascertained, the emergency power mandate was given originally to Mr. Heath, then CEO, and then Mr. Engelfritz assumed that authority when he became the new CEO. The board gave over their authority to make decisions in emergency situations. Mr. Engelfritz then implemented the COVID vaccination policy. Over 60 people were terminated from their employment at CT because they were disqualified because of their protected status during this state of emergency. Governor Inslee has announced he is lifting the state of emergency October 31st. The vaccine mandate was put in place because of the state of emergency. I think it totally a right procedure for this board to remove the emergency authority given to CEO and to rescind their personnel vaccine policy. This process, in my mind, would make these processes and events whole again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Winnie. Next, I have Shelley Schweiger.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shelley Schweiger, resident of Arlington. Internationally, the purpose of transportation is to reduce greenhouse gases. Growing community transit business has always been the goal. We achieve that goal by getting people out of their vehicles and onto community transit buses. Growing businesses has always included safety, service, and schedule. It's about getting people to where they are and to where they want to go. We need to ensure our taxpayers are getting what they are paying for. And while I was, working for community transit, I was awarded 2 million miles of safe driving during inclement weather and on the front lines. Last year, I was dealing with a tragic family crisis, and I was on approved PFMLA when community transit wrongfully terminated me. No due process, no duty of representation from ATU Local 1576. 1 year ago, October 7th, 2021, Eric Gilderfritz said he was implementing a vaccine policy for all employees, but only some of the employees were required to follow the policy. This month, Governor Inslee will remove the state of emergency, and this will allow community transit to hire unvaccinated employees. Today, I'm asking the board of directors to remove emergency authorization from Eric Gilderfritz and vote to rescind the personal policy vaccine policy. This will allow equal employment, job opportunities for all bus drivers and mechanics. Growing our business is allowing employees to come to work and provide full service to our community. Vote to restore service, hire them back, all drivers and mechanics. Start the healing process today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schweiger. Is there anybody else who'd like to? Yes, sir. Remember, and I did mention even to our board that the microphones aren't working, so just speak louder.
Speak loud, be clear. Well, here's my slip for speaking.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm Peter Migan. As a person of public, I'd like to speak on the mandate. What's been said has been said. I support rescinding it, but remember the old saying, do the math? While doing the math, I've noticed that prior to the mandate, there were cases of COVID. And I understand the CEO of Community Transit is implementing a mandate policy for safety reasons for the public. Well, since that mandate, there's been breakthrough cases. And there's more breakthrough cases than there have been actual cases. So I'm kind of at a loss as to what the purpose now is to continue with this mandate. Now, in light of Governor Inslee, when you lift the mandate, the restrictions as of October 31st, I see no reason to keep this mandate in force. And I'm asking the board to really take a hard look, do the math, and make a decision and rescind this mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anybody else in the room or online? If you're online, raise your hand. Oh, we've got a couple. We have Joe Kunzler.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, let me change my background. This was not on the flight plan for today, as you can probably tell. But I'm not happy about the platooning over the vaccine mandate. And so I want to again explain why it's so important by sharing my screen. This is from the CDC. The COVID-19 vaccine, when you have 2 doses, is 61% effective in preventing hospitalization. If you have 3 doses, it can get up to 80 to 92% effective. That's why we have the mandate, so we don't use people, we don't manipulate people, we don't allow them to get the COVID and end up in the hospital and possibly die. It's why I also support a mask mandate when riding public transit. Now, granted, I wear my mask anyway. And it isn't just because of the bloody COVID, it's because of the colds and the flus. It's because I believe in the sanctity of human life. I believe in the spirit of community. I believe in love one neighbor. And I am getting really sick and tired of having to literally get off the phone from my job and come down here and educate once again why we need a vaccine mandate. The disability community is getting really sick and tired of this. And you've got all this data from the CDC. You could have a public health person come in and explain it. And you should have your public health people take the same questions and inquiry that Dr. Allison Berry takes on the Olympic Peninsula. And I've used that resource to get you the most accurate information, not just political spin. I want to conclude on this fight because I don't want to be this angry citizen junior. I am deeply grateful for every employee of community transit that has enabled these online meetings. And I hope that as a federated board that you will instruct your staff to fill out the MRSC, that's Municipal Resource Services Council. I think that's what it stands for, and help them, and report back on how implementing House Representative Lick's House Bill 1329 has been for you. I do want to be kind and give you back 20 seconds, especially as this was not on my flight plan today. But again, I think it's time this board passed a resolution. This board just said, we're keeping the vax mandate to keep people out of the hospital. I want to thank you for your time and for hearing me out today. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Kunzler. Technically, there's only 1 second left. But all right, there was somebody else I think had a raised hand.
Jenny Anderson.
Jenny Anderson.
Hi, can everybody hear me? Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, Jenny, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I also would like to talk about the DART program. For the past, especially the past year, it has been going downhill very quickly. And I would strongly suggest that by the time contracts come around, you reconsider who you're giving your contracts to. I have had numerous problems with the DART program ever since TransDev took over. But last night was the most ridiculous night I have ever had on the DART. I sat there and waited for 2 solid hours after my window time was up, only to be told that in South Everett, where I was sitting, my bus was actually on its way to Stanwood and then would be there to pick me up. And that was 2 hours later than my window time. And the school administrator finally said, gee, I'm going home. Can I give you a ride home? And I said, yes, you can. And when they called me to tell me my bus was there, they said it was too bad that I hadn't told them. And I said, oh, you have got to be kidding. I could care less that I didn't tell you because I was on my way home. This problem is getting worse and worse. And I strongly suggest that you reconsider who you're giving your contracts to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. All right. Anybody else in the room or online? Okay, I search it. Yep. Mayor Nairn.
Could I respond just to some of the comments here?
Yeah, you feel compelled, you'd like to do that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna reiterate, I think, it's pretty well known, that I wasn't a fan of the vaccine mandate in the first place. But I think we need to make sure we have some clarity too around everything that's going on. This board did not implement the vaccine mandate, the CEO did. This board did take action a few months ago, I think it was wise action. I think we all learned a lot through emergency powers that were granted to executives all over the country during this pandemic, that there needs to be some parameters put around those. And I think this board acted wisely in future situations. The executive will need to come back to the board every 90 days to continue emergency action. And I think that's a great model to replicate elsewhere. But with regards to lifting the vaccine mandate in conjunction with the governor's order coming here at the end of the month, I'm not sure what all the connections are there, and I know our CEO is not here, so in fairness, he should obviously would be a huge part of this conversation. But since we've been asked as a board to lift the vaccine mandate, I guess I would want to know, do we have the ability to do that? I personally would be for that myself, but I don't know that we have the ability as a board to do that, and obviously we would want Rick to be a part of this as well. But since it's been brought up, is that something you can answer now, or if not, could you look into it?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to, giving an offhand answer.
All right, if we could get some word back on what the board's authority is in that area, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, well, that will bring us to, so we have some presentations. Director B, we have one with microtransit pilot launch update. We'd like to introduce, you want me to introduce Jennifer?
Jennifer Haas, who's our manager of community programs, is going to give an update on the pilot of the upcoming launch.
Thank you. Good afternoon. There we go. I need to. So I am here this afternoon. We were last here, Kevin Fuki, my partner in this project. He was here in August to give you an update on the microtransit lending pilot that is happening. And I am back today because we are now less than 2 weeks from launch, which is very exciting. And we have a lot of fun things to share with you about how we're ready to be out in the public and starting some service. So since we were last here, we have given our new service, pilot service, a name, ZIP. We went through a lot of testing and idea generation around that. We had about 100 names, I think, at one time in the hopper. In that selection process, we worked through our branding consultants. We also did a lot of customer consumer surveying and landed with the name to try for the pilot. So we're excited about that. We have integrated Orca into it, so people will use that for fare payments when they board the vehicle to be able to tap a card on the meter. So that's exciting. Again, the fares are the same as our local bus routes. So anyone can board who's an adult for $250, and then if you qualify for a lesser fare, you can also board and pay that amount, usually $1.25. And then use, of course, right for free. So that's great. We have been out in the public. This picture actually is from Limit Transit Center. So we have been field testing the last 2 weeks, and we'll be out again next week, where we're actually booking rides, taking trips, going to destinations, testing the Rider app, which is in progress. Again, this is a pilot, so we have a lot of learning. We know it won't be perfect from day one, but we're pushing hard to get it as the best customer experience we can from the day out the door. We'll also have a call center that customers can use. So if someone's not comfortable booking a trip on a smartphone, they can call a call center and request a trip that way. And then, as always, we'll be really monitoring what the customer experience is from day one of the pilot, and looking at data and information and making sure we're improving and getting feedback from customers on how we can make this product better and really learn during this launch period, which again is for 12 months. So we'll be starting on October 20th and running through October 2023. We've been out in the community doing events and publicizing. This is one that we did a few weekends ago, Fair on 44th and Linwood. It was really popular. Had a lot of good community feedback and input into the service. We had 2 vehicles out there so people could see. We have one small sedan there in the picture, the 4-door electric vehicle. We also have 3 minivans, 7-passenger vans that will be for service. We have 4 vehicles total for the service area. We're currently offering a promotion for Orca. So anyone who signs up on an early interest list will receive an Orca card close to launch, a few days before launch, where they can use the service for free for 30 days because we want people to try it and use it and get the feedback. And we also have, I'm very excited about an actual public launch event that's coming up on the 19th. I'll share a little bit more about that at the end of the presentation. But it will be launching that to the public. And then service actually starts at 5 a.m. the next day on October 20th. This is just a review again of the zone. It's about a 3-by-3 mile square. It borders on the west on Highway 99 and then goes over to the east on I-5 and Highway 525. Goes as far north as Swamp Creek Park and Ride just past there, and then down south to 204th on the other side of Woodland Transit Center. Service is going to operate from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily. We do have 2 pairs of Swift stops on Highway 99 near Safeway and then also the northern end near Walmart. So we're excited to promote and see how connections to our existing services can work, including Swift. While the main purpose of microtransit is to connect people within the zone, we're also really excited and encouraged to see how people connect to our other services to be able to get beyond the zone and other travel destinations. Way back when we chose this area of Linwood, it was because it was a high destination area, has a lot of shopping, also has a lot of multifamily residential. Anyone who's been near Alderwood Mall recently, there's apartment complexes above where the Sears building is and all kinds of new retail. So there's a lot of multifamily coming on in the next year, and has also been a lot of growth there just in the downtown center over the last 3 years. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a new service that we are piloting for the agency. And what does that mean to pilot and test? We're going to learn a lot. It will not be perfect from day one. We're being very transparent as we're promoting it and talking to customers and potential customers about that fact. We're building out a process where we can really get continuous feedback from users. We'll be able to reach out to people via email after they use the service to see how it went, do a brief survey. Customers can also rate the service when they book the trip and take the trip, so we'll get feedback that way as well. We have some robust data that we'll be able to look at on a very, very specific level, day-to-day basis, so we can make changes to service. Nice thing about a microtransit solution like this is it can be very agile. A little bit different sometimes than fixed route where you have to either wait for a service change or you have a lot of other factors. We can make small changes as we see need for to meet the needs of the community. And we also want to use all of this feedback just to overall improve the service itself. So again, the whole point of doing this is so we can learn. We have people that will be booking both through a call center and by using their phones. So we want to see how that's working for people. That is a little bit of a new product for the agency, so we're really interested to see how that works. Just the operations of the service is different. We have smaller vehicles. How does that work with passenger comfort and the driver and customer experience? So a lot of information to take out there. And then just overall really engaging with customers in that continuous feedback loop to make sure we are hearing what we need to hear, responding to customers, letting customers know that we did hear them. I think that's really important when you ask for feedback, that you close that loop. So we'll be developing a process where when we get input, we'll be able to push those updates back out to customers so they know what is new and happening with the service. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we have our public launch event on October 19th. You have all been invited. We hope you can all attend. It is Wednesday at 10:30 at the Linwood Convention Center. We're really excited. We have a lot of community members that will be there. If you remember back from the beginning of the project, we organized a community working group of about 16 businesses that represent the Linwood area. They have been instrumental in this process and making this project successful. They will be there. They also will be speaking. There'll be other elected officials and just a lot of hopeful cheer. We'll have vehicles there for people to look at. Just excited to get it going. Like I said, it starts at 5 a.m. the next day. So that is all I have. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, Councilmember Schweik.
So can I assume on micro transit that our youth fare free works there too?
Yeah.
So are there any schools within this area at Linwood?
There's no high schools. There's a couple middle schools and elementary schools.
Yeah, because they also have sports teams.
Mhm.
And I say that being involved in the younger ones that are 5 years old. So they could call and 3 or 4 of them could get a ride to where the game is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So am I to assume the event is going to be held outside of the Lincoln Convention or inside?
Great question. We have planned for both. The main speaking portion will be inside, and then we hope, if we keep this beautiful weather, we'll be doing the ribbon cutting outside.
Yeah, we've decided we're keeping the weather.
Good. Well,
You like
it's
it?
gonna be inside and outside.
All right, any further questions? Yeah. Good. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so next we have up the March 2023 service change, the Title VI public process. Amy.
All right. Roland Beatty, Director of Planning and Development, standing in for Rick today, but on this topic, I'm standing in for my planning staff, so. Got a slide there for you. As we're bringing this up, I kind of want to remind or perhaps review some of the comments. I think Rick shared some of these remarks as well of the last board meeting and some of our committees, but I think the board's well aware of the climate across the nation in terms of transit and the challenge of labor, challenge of getting enough drivers. Really, not even just public transit, but transportation in general is struggling to find enough drivers to provide service. It's freight, it's public transit, it's everywhere. There was a recent APTA study that we've talked about where 90% of transit agencies across the nation are struggling with recruitment, and about 2/3 of those are struggling to maintain service levels and to retain enough employees just to maintain those minimum service levels. So this is something that is affecting across the country. It's affecting Puget Sound. It's certainly affecting community transit. Just a couple of data points. We hired 87 people this year. We promoted 50, and we've lost another 57 to retirement and other attrition. And so we're gaining, but we're gaining at a very slow rate, and that's really continuing to affect our ability to reliably provide service on a daily basis. So, and as you'll see in our presentations on many of the other initiatives that we're moving forward on, there is a lot to be excited about in terms of the future of transit in Snohomish County. We are gearing up to connect with Linwood Link in 2024. We're building new SWIFT lines. We're launching exciting new services, and yet we're really struggling in the moment to attract enough labor to offer those services. So it's really this dichotomy of a mindset where we have huge aspirations and we also have some resources to implement them, but we don't have enough operators. So it's not an equipment issue or a funding issue. It's really it's a personnel issue. So that's some of the backdrop. What I plan to share today is just this is really an update and preview of more detail that will be coming in the October committee meetings later this month, and then coming back to the full board as we talk about public process oriented toward our March 2023 service. So Rachel, next slide. So some of the context in terms of where we are right now with service. The board will recall that as we went through the early months of this year, we really struggled with reliability coming out of the holidays. And we actually reduced service temporarily in March, and we have remained at that reduced service level ever since. And per FTA, they allow for agencies to make temporary service decisions for all kinds of reasons, whether it's construction reroutes or temporary disruptions in the system of one nature or another. In this case, we didn't have enough operators to reliably provide service. So we right-sized, we adjusted to a service level that we felt was a good compromise between demand and reliability. And we've been there ever since. You recall that we just a few weeks ago implemented September service change. And the system was largely held at status quo for that, although on our contracting side, we further reduced. We had 8 runs or 8 drivers worth of service that we have held back and continue to hold back in recent weeks in order to improve reliability on that side of the operation. And so what this process is really about is that FTA 12-month clock is ticking, and we are nearing the end of that period. In March of 2023, we will either need to increase service back to the level at which it was prior to reducing service, or it will be out of compliance with our federal transit Title VI processes. So that's really the nature of the process that we're going to be undertaking over the next several months, and the public process that the board will be involved in ultimately to make a decision on. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm just wanted to remind against, let's see, it's the one there, line chart. This is a chart we've shared in some of our ridership reporting with the board on a quarterly or semi-annual basis over the past couple of years. And so I share this just to provide some backdrop for this conversation. We're talking about our services. We're talking about the supply of workforce to operate them. I did want to give some context that we're being very careful as we talk about changes to service levels to be very aware of where our riders on the system today. And we have a lot of good news in terms of what this chart shows is it shows the last several years of ridership on the system overall. And that top gray line that you can see bouncing up and down there like EKG, that was 2019. That was pre-pandemic ridership when we were carrying 30,000 or more people per day. And had nearly 11 million boardings on an annual basis. So you can see in the blue lines below that, those are the years during the pandemic up to today. So the lighter blue line, which is kind of in the middle, that ends with that red circle, that's progress so far on ridership in 2022. And you can see there's some good news there. We've really been making slow but steady progress and have really seen an acceleration this fall. As students have gone back to school at our colleges and universities, as more people are returning to office situations rather than working from home. And we don't have precise data yet, but some of this could also be you providing our services as we took away the barrier for youth, provided that increase in access and opportunity. So I just remind the board with this chart that we are seeing higher utilization on our system. We're nearly 21,000 boardings per day right now. You can see over 123,000 boardings on a weekly basis. So this is good news. It also means we need to be careful and deliberate about where we make changes to service because we're providing really valuable connections for people every day.
And every day is like Christmas Eve.
This is the good news is we're now starting to at least get onto the chart in terms of where we were in 2019. So we got a long ways to go, but it's good to be getting back into those ranges. Next slide, please. So what we're going to do today is just give a preview of where we will be when we begin a public process next month. We really have 3 options ahead of us that staff are considering in terms of service in March. Where we really want to be is number 1, which is restoring the services that we cut back in March of this year. And that would take us to approximately the level of service that we were at when we connected with Northgate back in October of 2020. So that is what is really guiding our recruiting process, our targets, our aspirations, and we really hope to get more as close to that mark as we can, and then grow beyond it into our aspirations for 2024 and beyond. The 2 options that we see below that are what we need to, really what are driving the need for a public process. So the second option is to continue the level of service that we're operating at today, October of 2022, which is really what we implemented in September. And so that's, if I would call that status quo, it's not what our plan calls for, but it is the reality where we are right now, given current staffing and ability to support service. I will say that we are delivering The vast majority of our service on a daily basis under this plan, reliability on the contracted service side has increased dramatically with the change we made in September, and we're dropping very few with any trips on a daily basis. On the directly operated side, we've also seen a substantial improvement in reliability. We're delivering in the high 90% range on a daily basis there, but we are still missing trips. And so what we're evaluating is the option number 3, which is, would we have to further reduce service beyond where we are at today, this week, in March of 2023? And that is a possibility. And really what the variable here is how many of the people that are currently in our hiring pipeline will actually complete the process successfully through training and become drivers in our service. And then working in the other direction, how many of our current driving population will choose to retire or leave the agency before March? And so we really need to balance that and figure out what can we realistically achieve in terms of the workforce that's on hand to operating service. And so we'll be working through those questions carefully. Staff are evaluating what the right level of what I'm going to call the floor is to begin in this public process. It's appropriate to think of this almost as an insurance policy with FTA. If we have to operate to the level of service we're at today or lower than that, we need to have conducted that public process. We need to have engaged you in that process, and we need your decision on what the specific service plan is. So that'll be really what we're evaluating in public in November and asking for a decision on after that December. I'll share a little bit of the timeline in a second. What we're doing right now, at staff level, is really carefully evaluating those ridership numbers. We're looking at the reliability of our service, and we're really trying to select what will be the description of that lowest level of service, that floor that represents the baseline that we won't go below. And so we are, we're carefully considering, do we take some of the very lowest ridership routes that may be carrying a handful of people a day and decide to temporarily suspend an entire route? As another strategy would be instead take some further frequency out of some of our higher utilization services. And there's some trade-offs there, balancing to do. So we are really working through those issues with an eye on all the different variables. We'll be coming back to the Strategic Alignment Committee on October 19th with our recommendation on where to start the public dialogue. So, and we really hope to exceed those expectations as we get deeper into the fall and we get better projections of where we're landing with the recruiting process. But we do need to publicize essentially that lowest baseline case, and we need to have that clearance to operate at that level if we must once we get through this next few months. So that's what's coming. Let's move to the next slide, Rachel. I'm just kind of talk about timing. So this lays out the schedule. I'm here talking about this on 6th of October. We will be briefing the committee on the 19th, and by that time we'll have our recommendation from staff on the details. We will then we'll first brief the board on the 3rd of November, and we will, around that time, 10/31, the end of October, or perhaps in that first week of November, we'll have much better clarity on what the staffing forecast is in terms of what's our risk in terms of attrition and retirement. What do we think is going to be coming through the hiring pipeline to be available to operate service in March? And when we put those variables together, we will really have some better clarity for the board on, do we think the baseline level of service is where we're at today? Do we think it's going to be lower than that? If it is lower than that, what are the specific pieces of service that we think should be temporarily suspended so we can get our workforce up to a level to support service reliability? We will ask the public to comment on those plans during the month of November. We will come back to the committee again in the 3rd week of November for a final review of options and our recommended path forward. And then we will come back to the board in the December meeting for a public hearing, which we traditionally conducted in the public comment period. But also due to the compressed schedule here, we will need to have a decision in that meeting as well. And you'll have the full range of public comment in front of you, as well as the type of 6 evaluations. You have all the data points that you need with which to make a decision on this. And then that will give staff direction they need to finally implement the service plan, which are the steps that would happen in the weeks following that prior to March of 2023. So it's, as I said, it's, we're doing everything we can to avoid further reductions in service. And we're really trying to maximize the reliability that we have out there today. But we do need to do this as part of our formal FTA process. It's an expected part of our work applications. And so that's what to expect. I'd be happy to answer questions. And like I said, there'll be more information coming to the committee.
All right. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Can we get these slides?
Thank you. Yeah, this having bad memories of the 2011 time frame. It seems like we went through a similar process due to the economy then, more than we could afford to keep service. Now, as I understand it, obviously the money's there. We just don't have the coach operators primarily, right? In that, when we did that, so this we're looking at a decision on the 12-1 board meeting in 2 months.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, as I remember, we had a pretty robust, I guess, analysis at the committee level and on up during that time. And it sounds like that's the plan here.
It is. I will draw one distinction with the what we would call the Great Recession service reductions. We had to make the length of that process was longer, and we had more touches with the board in terms of developing strategies.
Yeah,
and that was really because those were long-term decisions. There were, that was a very lengthy period. You may recall that we were looking at the better part of the decade before we go back to pre-recession levels of revenue. This is much different in terms of we're optimistic. This is a very short-term issue. We would be looking for an off-ramp to begin, bringing services back that were temporarily suspended. Could be as early as the June shakeup, certainly by the September service change this coming year. And as I said, defining the floor is really giving us the space that we need to have flexibility in terms of finding where's the sweet spot from a reliability perspective. We would have every intent to deploy more service than this decision would provide for. So that, I just want to kind of clarify, we think it's a short-term issue, and we're really trying to focus on reducing the services that would have the least impact from a customer perspective, knowing that we are going to continue to grow the system as soon as we possibly can.
Okay. So if you're able to go back to the slide to show the different years, the graph on that. So even if we had all the drivers we needed, the reality of it is that the people are coming back, but not to the degree that we had hoped by now. I mean, when you look at the numbers, I was making a joke that every day is like Christmas Eve, but that's our slowest day of the year. And we're literally maintaining what would normally be our slowest day of the year pre-COVID. And to me, that's kind of the scarier part. We have an issue with drivers, but even with all of the buses running, they're just not running full. They're not running to the level that we used to. I mean, that's markedly from 200,000 down to 80 to now 120, excuse me. So like half of our ridership. So I don't know if that's a question as much as, how do we deal with that, getting people back comfortable, right? Certainly they're coming back to airports more, right? There's a real ball that they seem to be coming. If you've flown recently, you know they're back. And the other question is, with regard to the decisions we need to make and saying those runs that maybe only a handful of people on, do we cut that one, which is what you think automatically? Well, of course, that's what you should do, as opposed to reducing service on a ride that's very popular, that the buses are full, but we need to cut back some of our hours on that. But doesn't Title VI kind of the riders that are only a handful, but they need that service? Doesn't that kind of sort of dictate that we build that route and not cut those?
Yeah, so I'll answer it in a couple of ways, and I do want to let the staff conclude their work, because we'll be coming back with a lot of the questions you're raising will be answered to the staff to present their recommendations on this. And the points you're raising are exactly what we're weighing. Ridership, demand on the system. What are the Title VI consideration in terms of where do we have high levels of, for example, low income or minority riders who are dependent on the system or have few choices in terms of mobility. All of that's going to be considered in terms of the recommendations we make. What I would say in terms of the picture that's shown here from a ridership perspective, the overall distribution of riders in the system is inconsistent, and so this masks a bit of that. What we're seeing is the commuter services that we have traditionally operated to destinations in King County are where those took the biggest hit in terms of ridership losses, and that's where we've seen some good progress in terms of some of those riders coming back, but they are still far below pre-pandemic levels. On the local service, and particularly services like the Swift lines, we never saw the level of ridership drop that we saw in commuter services. They only dropped to maybe 75% of pre-pandemic ridership levels, and they've come back much more strongly. So when you look at our overall pre-pandemic level of ridership on local routes within Snohomish County and where we are today, we've made a lot more progress in terms of ridership recovery, and that also speaks somewhat to our future plans in terms of as Sound Transit makes that regional investment in light rail, and we're able to pull back the investments on I-5, we'll be pivoting into local service much more strongly. And so some of that is going to be expansion of bus services, which is what our 2024 network plan is all about, strengthening those local connections within Snohomish County, as well as getting people to light rail. It's also services like Jennifer just described in terms of going out and getting people where they live in the neighborhoods, in our communities, bringing them either to the destination or into the more central trunk lines that we operate throughout the county. So it is the local picture is more optimistic than what you see here. And that's part of why we really need to be careful as we're making these temporary service adjustments that we don't do damage in the system. And that's really what we're trying to achieve in terms of the proposals that we'll bring forward later this month.
And thank you for bringing up an important point of those routes that we don't do because of light rail that carried a lot of people in Seattle. We don't have to do that was a large number of items. Excellent point. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Anybody?
Yeah, I got a question.
That's our doctor.
Well, actually, it's not a question, it's a comment. There's a little bit of changing landscape also coming from where we get our funding. That it will deal with the local routes a little bit more, in that some of our FTA funding is going to be changing on what the formula is for the 14% probably that we get from the federal government out of PSRC, and I'll talk about that when we come to the board communications. But there is going to be a little bit more emphasis put on the lower income, aged youth, things like that, which falls under the PSRC definition of equity. And so there's going to be some small changes that are going to be coming down the pike on that, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. But I think that we're going to need to put that into the staff is going to have to look at how that's going to play out for this particular thing right now. So it's coming. I just don't know what it's going to look like yet.
Thank you, Councilor Godfrey. More hands up there. All right, so our CEO report.
Before I sit, I also just wanted to give a shout out. I wanted to thank Chris Simmons and Thomas Toll and all of our service planning staff. There's just been a tremendous amount of work that's gone into this issue in recent weeks, and that'll continue as we bring those proposals forward. So thanks to the staff for all the hard work. Talk loudly because I understand these mics. They're not working. So it makes you feel very, it's natural. So again, I wanted to just express regrets for Rick, who's out of town this week. And I'm happy to pinch hit. I was talking with the mayor before the meeting. I'm going to try to keep it to 3 minutes, but we'll probably I don't want to establish any unhelpful precedent. Also, just wanted to extend welcome to Councilmember Peterson as well, just saying welcome and thanks for your service. Also, before I get started, I did want to just acknowledge some of our public commenters regarding DART service. And I guess what I wanted to say is I know it's difficult to come and you know, testify in the middle of the day, and it's not an easy topic. I just wanted to say that thank you for that feedback. We have been very aware of performance issues on DART, and we really are working hard with our contractor. And I'll say we're owning that performance. We recognize we're not meeting expectations there, and we're working very diligently with TransDev on solutions. We have temporarily authorized an contract that allows them to do some subcontracting, try to bring some labor on a temporary basis. And I just wanted to let you know we're going to get in contact with those, particularly the customers that have had some disappointing service experiences recently, really trying to monitor them very directly to ensure that things improve soon. So it's a difficult conversation. You're challenged with the same labor challenges in terms of not enough workers out there on the contracts as well as with other service. So I just wanted to say thank you for those who testified and provided us with comments, and we apologize for the service. So some quick updates. We talked about Youth Fair, and that did launch on the 1st of the month. For riders 18 and younger, and you know, it's early days. So far, we don't have any safety issues or operational concerns to report on that. I know I've spoken with a couple of drivers and supervisors out in transit centers when I've been on my commute to and from work, and they've actually been excited about it. And so they've been excited to see more youth on the bus. I'm a practically daily rider on the Swift Blue Line, and you know, I see them come in the doors, and you know, there's 2 or 3 youth at a clip coming in, and I'm just thinking to myself, oh, they didn't have to worry about tapping their card or buying a ticket. It's just kind of cool to see them coming and going so freely. So we are seeing positive ridership numbers, which you saw from the chart, and I'm going to guess that once we crunch them, we'll probably return some of them. So we distributed about 2,400 Orca cards to 7 school districts. And we're also partnering with Volunteers of America to distribute cards for youth that they're assisting located in Snohomish County from some dangerous areas like Ukraine. So that's also a program. Interest from the community's been very enthusiastic, and we just wanted to thank you for your support of this policy. In terms of capital projects, we have a lot of building activity underway. When I talk with Greg Samadio, our capital development manager, you know, we really have, there's never been a point in time when our agencies had more construction projects underway currently. On the Orange Line, we were both transit centers at Pelham Park and at this college, and we're beginning the stations along the line. You drive around Bollywood and see some of our construction activities on the streets. And then on our facility master plan projects, we now have 3 locations under construction. 2 of them in Merrill Creek with the upgrade and expansion of the maintenance facility, and then the remodel of the old admin building that we were occupying before Peter Cascade. And then just in real time, I'm going to point people out the window across the street. You can see more of the Boeing building now, and that's because we cleared that lot over there that you see the dirt moving. And the board will remember authorizing purchase of that land not many months ago. It's been cleared, it's being graded, and by on or about the end of this year or very early next year, that project will be done. So it is moving very quickly. That will be our training and vehicle storage facility. It's going to allow us both to store more vehicles on our contingency fleet, but also train our operators for the future network. So it's really exciting. There's just a lot of activity underway, and it's an active time for the capital construction side of things. Let's see, we were at the Trade Up event up in Marysville last week. So at Marysville Philtruck High School, I think Deb and Mary Beth and others were up there at the event sponsored by Snohomish County Labor Council. We had students that were interested in trades career path. They were able to crawl all over one of our 30-foot buses, talk with one of our coach operator instructors, and then we had one of our journeyman mechanics up there as well. They were able to share with the students what is it like to work at community transit, what is this career path like, and talk about the mechanic apprenticeship program. The board might remember, it's been around for a while, that this program is the brainchild of our former board member, Labor and Council Secretary Leonard Kelly. So it's really great to see it moving forward. Legislative update, board received a draft 2023 state legislative agenda in today's materials. This highlights our legislative priorities that we're going to use meetings coming up with legislators both before and during the session. Some prime areas of focus, maintaining the funding we received in the 2015 Connecting Washington measure, and then also most recently the 2022 Ahead Washington revenue. We're also asking legislators to support the continued build out of our SWIFT program, and then most particularly also emerging capital, it's like our zero emission vehicle version, which we're hearing more about. Also, an area of interest is safety and security and workforce development. If you've got any questions or input you wish to share, please take the floor. Let us know. In financial matters, we concluded our state audit. We had an exit conference that was held with the auditor's office on September 23rd. I wanted to thank Sharon Marini, Councilmember Schwede, Labor Representative Morton, and also Mayor Frizzell for joining the staff in the exit conference. And we got another one of those plaques, 27 consecutive years that we've received a clean audit opinion. So big thanks to Lori Fox sitting back here at the audience. Carrie Albert, the whole finance crew. It's a team effort, and just excited to keep that going. And thanks to all the employees for their contributions to that. They're good stewardship of public funds. Let's see. We reported earlier to you this week that Inju Greenhouse has accepted the position of Chief Financial Officer, our new CFO. And she'll be joining the agency on October 24th. And I know Greg, when he gets back, is really looking forward to seeing her to the board. That'll happen at your workshop on the 27th of this month. We're really excited. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
Right at 3 minutes. Say hello to Rick's 3 minutes.
That's right. It's a Rick minute.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're going to move the committee reports. I'll start with the executive committee. We met on Thursday, September 15th. Oh, I suppose I should have asked, does anybody have a question? Or
Can I ask one?
yeah,
Just because I don't remember, the property across that's going to be the training room, how many acres is that?
Real close to 4 acres.
40? Four, okay. Well, I'm sitting there seeing the brick building and
It's just to the
going
left.
on the other side.
Yeah,
so-
you probably come over if you're sitting where I'm in. You can see it's just to the left.
Okay, so 4 acres, okay. I was thinking it was bigger than that.
Yeah, it'll have approximately a 2 acre training course on it, and then we'll be able to store about 70 vehicles, heavy bus, dart, and van.
Okay, thank you.
okay, any other questions? Okay, back to the executive committee report. We met on Thursday, September 15th. Councilmember Schwede, Councilmember Merrill, Councilmember Daughtry, and myself attended. We listened to the CEO report that we shared at the meeting here. Was provided, also included a report of the 2023 Washington State Legislative Session Community Transit Priorities, and executive session was called for labor negotiations. The next executive committee meeting is scheduled for October the 20th at 11:30. And next up, Strategic Alignment Capital Development Committee, Councilmember Merrill.
Yes, the Strategic Alignment and Capital Development Committee meeting was held remotely over Zoom on Wednesday, September 21st, 2022 at 2 p.m. The meeting was attended by myself, Councilmember Dayton Naring, and Labor Representative Lance Norton, Mayor Marine, and Councilmember Lee. The committee reviewed and forwarded one action item on today's board agenda. We'll hear this a little bit later. The resolution number 19-22 to award RFP 2022-120 Swift Blue Line Replacement 60-foot BRT hybrid electric buses. Mike Swella, Deputy Director of Maintenance, will present this item. There were no consent items, and the committee forwarded two informational items that we heard earlier in today's board meeting. The Linwood Micro Transit Program launch and the March 2023 service change in Title 6 public process. Next meeting of the Strategic Climate Capital Development Committee is Wednesday, October 19th.
Thank you. And Finance, Performance and Oversight Committee, Councilmember Schwedding.
Okay, the Finance Performance and Oversight Committee met on Thursday, September 15th, 2022 via Zoom. Board members Christine Pretzel, John Neary, Sid Robertson, I attended. Consent items, approval of August 2022 monthly expenditures and payroll are items 7B through F on the agenda. Reports, safety and security update. The committee received its monthly safety and security update. Staff presented an update on the safety and security strategic plan. The October 2nd, 2022 financial report. The unaudited financial report for quarter 2, 2022 was presented to the committee and is included in your packet. And the best news of all, I always love this one. In August 2022, community transit collected approximately 17.6 million in sales tax revenue, approximately 500,000 more than budgeted. A copy of the report is included in your packet. The diesel fuel update and report, the budget committee continues to closely monitor fuel costs as fuel prices have continued to fall from their peak earlier this summer, which changed, I think, this morning, didn't it? Yeah. Anyway, the next Finance, Performance and Oversight Committee meeting is scheduled at 2 p.m. Thursday, October 20th, 2022 via Zoom.
Thank you very much. We will move to consent items. Is there any of those that somebody needs pulled or has questions on, or I'll accept a motion to approve consent items?
Move approval.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that will pass unanimously. This will bring us to our first action item, as was referenced earlier, the resolution number 19-22, order of the RP number 2022-120, Swift Blue Line. Mike.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm Mike Swalen, Deputy Director of Maintenance. Before you is a request for the purchase of 15 hybrid BRT new flyer buses. These are going to replace the 2009, the original Swift Blue Line buses. That'll be about 15 years old and have between 900,000 and 1 million miles on them. So the TDP calls for ordering these coaches in 2023 for delivery in 2024. However, during recent negotiations with Blue Flyer, we learned that the Cummins hybrid motor package with the stop-start technology would cease production at the end of 2023. And they recommended, in order to secure a place, we place the order now in the fourth quarter of 2022. So funding for this purchase would be presented as a budget amendment to the Finance, Performance and Oversight Committee at their next meeting and then the full board at the November meeting. The recommendation is being made in light of our overall zero emission work. The current technology hybrid coaches provide a nice incremental step as we convert to a green fleet. And this procurement will build a solid foundation for future zero emission plans. With that, we request that the board of directors approve resolution number 19-22, authorizing the chief executive officer or designee to negotiate and award contract RFP number 2022-120, which is DES number 06719, to New Flyer of America, Inc. for 15 BRT 60-foot hybrid electric buses for a not to exceed amount of $21,550,030. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I was just curious, how many of these do we have in our fleet?
So BRT coaches today, I have 33. There were 15 original and then the subsequent 18 for the green line order. These are to replace the original 15. We also have 21 more on order for the orange line and blue line expansion.
And they're the same as these.
No, the orange line and blue line expansion coaches on order are the same as the green line. So that kind of 2018 to 2020, fall year 2022/23 will all be the same. These are kind of the next step in the evolution to a full green zero emission fleet.
So what's the new model that they're phasing this out? What are they going to here?
So Cummins in the industry, they're moving their production lines to either be full diesel like we have today, or a full zero emission battery electric.
The
propulsion.
hybrid's kind of going. for it.
Yeah.
Oh, just curiosity too, on this, since they're hybrid electric, do they have to be charged?
No, part of the hybrid program is that Cummins motor acts as the power plant generator. And so we fill it from our normal diesel tanks with our existing infrastructure. And then that generates the electricity for all the electric accessories in the electric drivetrain. No plug-in charging.
But we are looking at going to electric, or we haven't decided between electric and the other hydrogen. Yeah.
That's part of the benefit of this is the current generation of hybrid technology. It's almost essentially an electric bus. They've moved to electric air conditioning, electric, power steering, all of these things that today are hydraulic or kind of conventional driven. So this is a battery electric bus. It's just got kind of a diesel generator on the back. But it doesn't require any existing infrastructure changes. As we're conducting our zero emission feasibility, which should be wrapping up next year, then we'd be coming to the board with that kind of recommendations about battery electric or hydrogen or whatever the case may be.
Okay, thank you.
So it seems like a heavy, I completely understand why you're doing this, but it seems like a heavy lift to have to do half your fleet all at one time. Is it our hope that in the future, let's say we end up with probably 40 to 50 split line, right? When they open, to where we do maybe 5 to 8, if they get them on a schedule rather than so many at one time.
Absolutely. It's a big lift for my group to, do the upfitting and getting these prepared for service. I'm looking at the TDP and when we're getting coaches in, that's definitely part of it. After this, I think the next one you're going to see is the gold line order. And that's, I think that's 13, maybe 15 of them to ask for. Sure.
See, that's kind of the problem, right? We buy a bunch at one time because it's a whole new line. Well, they all age at the same time. So it's hard to get them on that cycle of 5 or 6 rather than 15 all at once. But
if I can keep it under 30, I'm happy.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions? And let me look online. Did you have anybody, Rachel, on the board members? Hands? Okay. All right, and we, without further questions, there is a motion. Because if we act now, putting it there, we're gonna free into night as well. Comes with it.
I'll make the motion. I have the motion to approve resolution 19-22.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
If we got a motion and a second, any discussion on the motion?
As written.
As written.
Yeah, it's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We went with this assumption. Any discussion on the motion? As written. All right. Seeing and hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that will pass unanimously. Go out and get your buses. All right, thank you. All right, it brings us to the chair's report. Again, I want to welcome Councilmember Ron Peterson to the board. And you've been fairly quiet today, which is always smart, right? When you get in there and kind of listen a little bit, because we expect that they'll have a bunch of questions that come along. So again, welcome. We have a board workshop scheduled for October the 27th at 3 o'clock. It's going to include a presentation on the 2023 proposed budget and the zero emission technology feasibility study. Also a reminder, October the 19th at 10:30, Linwood Convention Center. Mayor Frizzell wants to host us there at Linwood. She's very excited about that whole project. So hope to see many of you there. Any other communication from the board?
Yes, I have some. As I alluded to earlier, I've been attending meetings with the rest of the transit agencies. There's a subcommittee that has been formed for changing the formula for FTA funds. This basically came from Pierce County, if I'm not mistaken, where they're looking for changing the formulas that we use for distributing the money throughout PSRC's region on the FTA funds. So we've met a couple times now. Yesterday's meeting went really, really well. We were tasked with bringing in our own versions of what we want it to be if we were to change it. And I got some good support from the staff at Community Transit. And so there's 4 different proposals that were put in. One from King County was the same as ours. Basically, they collaborated with King County to do this. And the way it's looking right now is that we're going to maintain the FTA formula funding for the 86% that goes through the formula. And we're going to be changing the 14%, which is a competitive amount of money. And that generally is split 50-50 for preservation on one hand and for other things on the other hand. The way that it's looking right now is that we're going to go ahead and take that 14% of the FTA and reconfigure it in some manner to be looked at through an equity lens, so that if we are in competition for these funds, which has not been decided yet either, but if it does remain competitive, then they're going to be looking with a big lens on where we're going to use those funds to help the historically marginalized communities, the elderly, the youth, and those kinds of things. One thing that came up was the IIJA funds, which are over and above what we usually get from FTA, and how that's going to be taken. There are a couple of conversations on that were to put that all into just the regular FTA formula funds and split it the 86-14 again. And then so we would be formula funds for 86% of the IIJA funds, and 14% would go into this competitive market at the same as the FTA. I think that's the way it's going to go, but there is some pushback on that to make the IIJA funds basically rolled into the 14%, and they all go into that with the same configurations. So anyway, I just wanted to update you on what's going on. We were relatively surprised that most of the proposals came in basically the same. So we're moving rather rapidly. Didn't really think that that was going to happen. Pierce County's been pushing back on stuff pretty hard, but I think they understood after a while what the writing on the wall was. And the 86% formula funds are pretty well set. And we forecast on those funds 6 years out, and it makes it really hard for any transit agency if you're going to go change those in the middle of your work and so that's what we're doing. We're going to meet again here shortly. They're looking at doing some modeling on different things. What would this type of what would this change do to, let's say community transit wants to do out on Tulalip something, or what would happen if Pierce County wants to do something out near JBLM, or those kinds of things, and try to get it back to where we can look at some numbers and see how that's going to affect us. So they're going to come up with probably no more than a dozen scenarios that we can look at and see, okay, how is this really changing things for everybody? One person or one transit agency that would be basically left out of any of this would be the ferries, because the ferries really don't meet the definitions of what the 14% would go for. So we may have to change that definition slightly to include the ferries into it. Anyway, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Daughtry. Is there anybody else online? Councilmember Schmidt?
The APTA conference starts on Sunday, runs through Wednesday. Joe and I are going. Mary Beth is going to be speaking on Monday. And then on Tuesday, Community Transit will be receiving a award. So if it's on Zoom, you can watch.
Right, or the chair that will take pictures.
Yeah.
Let's see it. Okay, not seeing any other board. Just a reminder, we will adjourn to executive session. I'll just be in the room out the door to your left. Not to exceed what, 20 minutes. 20 minutes? Okay. All right. So we will adjourn to that.
Sheila, one more thing.
Oh, yeah.
There's no action following. So
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no action following. It was just, yeah, update. Thank you, Richard.
Mike's on.
Tomorrow.
Audio's on.
Oh, yeah, tomorrow, yeah.
So we.
Oh, good. All right. We are back from the executive section as there were no decisions. And we will adjourn our regular meeting. Thank you. Just on for that.
Oh, yeah.